Good evening. Sorry. Good evening, and would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. 1.03, adoption of the agenda. It is recommended that the agenda for February 9th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be adopted as presented.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 2, recognition, nothing. 3, comments and questions from the floor. 3.01, representatives of the Mishawaka Parent Group. 3.02, representatives of school employees. 3.03, representatives of Mishawaka Education Foundation. Mr. Laban.
Good evening, board. I apologize. Our favorite MEF cheerleader is not here tonight, and I forgot my cheerleading costume at home, so you have me. On behalf of the board of directors, we want to thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. We want to congratulate, firstly, Sarah Huber for her amazing honor. I know she will be here at the next school board meeting, so we'll learn more about that here to come. MEF would also like to share that the 2022 MEF Major Saver Card, it's the buy one, get one free, will be sold in Marsh, so save your money to make money on local restaurant visits and to help MEF help Mishawaka students to succeed. Thanks for all that you do on behalf of the entire board. We appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you. 3.04, general public. We have one person signed up, Mr. Strawn.
Good evening, Madam President, school board members, Mr. Barker, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Strawn. I reside and own property at 305 George Street in Mishawaka. I have no group affiliation. I'm not a vendor, contractor, employee, retired annuitant, or creditor of the school city of Mishawaka, nor do I have a personal or business relationship with any school city vendor. My comments this evening address 4 agenda items. The first one, item 8.01, e-learning. Dr. Stockstill and Mrs. Cummings. Question. Since the beginning of the 21-22 academic year on August the 11th, 2021, how many e-learning days has School City experienced thus far? Item 9.06, recommendation to approve professional services agreement with Marsh. Several questions here. On September 12, 2017, the School City of Mishawaka Board of School Trustees approved award of a contract in the amount of $592,700 to Vermilion Systems of Walkerton, Indiana, for providing and installing the original video surveillance equipment at all 9 school city buildings. When added to the cost of the awarded qubits wiring contract of $462,273, the total anticipated final cost of the original video system installation sums to $1,054,973. What was the final cost of the taxpayer for the original installation of the video surveillance equipment at all 9 school city of Mishawaka buildings, inclusive of any change orders which may have been board approved and issued during initial construction? Question 2. Page 2 of the Marsh letter dated January 18th, 2022 lists the construction start date of to be determined. When does School City expect construction to begin on this project? Your best guess will be fine. Question 3. What will be the source of funds for the construction segment of this project? Question 4. Does either School City of Mishawaka or Marsh intend to solicit any public input on the development of the statement of work or other technical requirements contained in any prospective request for proposal? And lastly, question 5 on this item. Which school and city employee will be the final approval authority for the inclusion or exclusion of any specific terms, conditions, or technical requirements in any future request for proposal? Item 9.07, recommendation to approve Mishawaka High School marching band uniform purchase. 4 questions here. When does School City expect delivery of the entire set of uniforms? Question 2, does this purchase include a warranty of any kind? If so, please explain. Question 3, what were the shipping charges, if any? And question 4, what does School City intend to do with the worn-out band uniforms? And the last item this evening, item 9.08, recommendation to approve the high school food service equipment purchase. One question here, what does School City intend to do with the expended food service equipment? That completes my comments for this evening. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, David. 4, consent agenda. 4.01, approval of the minutes of the January 19, 2022 board meeting. It is recommended that the minutes of the January 19, 2022 board meeting be approved as presented. 4.02, approval of bill warrants and payroll. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees approve the payment of bill warrants and payroll in the amount of $3,887,428.52 from the appropriate funds. 4.03, acceptance of donations. Before we do go on, I would like to pass this over to Wayne so he can talk about the 2 donations that we received because they're amazing.
Thank you, President Parks. We do have 2 incredibly generous donations for your consideration tonight. The first one comes to us from the estate of Donald Hireman. Mr. Hireman was a 1958 graduate of Mishawaka High School, and in his estate, they are leaving $75,000 with very clear directions on how they would like for us to allocate those funds. But that is in honor of both he and his wife, Lois, who are 1958 graduates, and also in honor of the class of 1935 in remembrance of his parents, Chester and Agnes Hireman. So incredibly generous donation there of $75,000. Secondly, you have a donation for consideration from Mrs. Colleen Lerner. She is a proud 1943 graduate of Mishawaka High School. She is donating $15,000 to you tonight. And just a little bit about her. She graduated in 1943 and became a member of the Cadet Nurse Corps and took a 3-year course in nursing at Memorial Hospital. The Cadet Nurse Corps was a federally funded program provided for the training of nurses during World War II. The war was over by the time Colleen graduated in 1946, but her training provided her a nursing career which she used and valued for her entire life. She is a person who believes that education is a very important part of life, and she hopes that in her small way, she is assisting her high school in providing today's students with a high quality of education. She is donating that $15,000 to the Mishawaka High School Science Department. Mrs. Lerner lives still today here in Mishawaka, and she's 96 years old, so another very generous donation for your consideration tonight. Very
impressive. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accept the donations as listed and documented. And thank you very much. 4.04, approval of the December financial report. It is recommended that the board approve the December 2021 financial report as presented. 4.05, approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 5, vision initiatives. 5.01, roadmap to recovery update. Mr. Barker, Mr. LeBon.
So Mr. LeBon's coming up tonight. I just have a very brief comment to make, and that's we're in a much better position tonight than we were 1 month ago at our first board meeting in January, and Mr. LeBon is here tonight to present that information to you.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Good evening once again, board. We're going to keep things brief this evening, but we're pleased that numbers locally are falling and falling rapidly. As of yesterday afternoon, you can see both in your handouts and on the screen there that the local health department reported 294.6 new cases. That is down from nearly 1,200 at our last school board meeting in January. And also a percent positivity rate of 16.6%. Again, that is also down since our last meeting in January. State and CDC metrics mirror that same narrative. We have been advised that we will likely remain in the red for a few more weeks, but again, we're encouraged that we're moving in an optimistic direction. Looking at our internal COVID-19 impact data, again, we're extremely grateful that that precipitous decline or fall off that we were really holding our breath for, that's exactly what we have experienced. Knock on wood, but things have been refreshingly slow from a COVID standpoint of things. And that said, we ended the week of our last meeting just shy of 700 students and staff who had been in quarantine. As of this afternoon, we have 179 staff and students who have been or are currently in quarantine as of this week. We'd obviously prefer that number to be 0. 179 is significantly better than 700 where we were again at the last board meeting. That decline referenced moments ago, that's most evidenced in our numbers of positive cases. We ended the week of our last meeting at 168 positive cases. That was our highest week since the start of this pandemic. However, we've seen a decrease over the last 2 weeks. We recorded 80 cases the week of January 24th through the 28th and 24 cases last week. This week to date, we will add 11 new cases. That includes 10 students and just 1 staff member. So once again, while near 0 is probably our best case or most logical scenario moving forward in long term, we're talking about a significantly different story than what we were just 2 to 3 weeks ago. Quickly wanted to mention that due to that inclement weather last week, we did have to reschedule our next vaccination clinic. So that has been moved to February 17th, so next Thursday. Again, Emmons Elementary Gymnasium from 3 to 6 p.m. MishawakaSchools.com/immunizations for anyone who's interested or for more information to register. Finally, we do have one recommendation that we're asking for the board's favorable approval for this evening, and that is a revision to our quarantine guidelines when a student is exposed here inside of a school. This recommendation follows the lead of the State Health Department, which revised its guidelines to allow students who are exposed at school, specifically during lunchtime. That's the big shift from what we had been doing to what we will be recommending here, that they are allowed to remain in school rather than having to complete a period of quarantine. So prior to this recommendation or this change, when a student tested positive, schools would contact trace during lunch because all parties were not 100% masked. Obviously, you have to remove your mask in order to eat your lunch. As a result of that, those students who met that definition of close contact were required to complete a period of quarantine as the result of that. With this change and following the guidance from the state health officials, those students do not have to quarantine. They're able to remain in school and do so safely. So again, it doesn't really necessarily reduce the amount of work that has to be done because those families would still be notified much like they are currently being notified. The exception being that more students are going to stay in school, which again is our shared objective here. So that is the sole recommendation that we have for you this evening. And I will turn it to Mr. Barker to make that recommendation.
It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees approve the roadmap to recovery update as presented.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? We can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Saying that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm excited. 5.02, Planning for Preferred Future of Educational Excellence. Mr. Barker.
Just have a quick update for you tonight. Tomorrow afternoon, we will have a meeting with our community collaborating leadership team, which consists of our co-chairs, Mr. Chuck Lehman and Kate Volker. Also included in that is Dick Curry as a community volunteer, and then Dean Spiker, Bruce Daly, and myself. So we'll meet tomorrow to plan that very first meeting that we have, which is March 3rd with the committee. We'll meet our first meeting in March. That'll be an organizational type meeting, and then they will have their first official meeting later that month. And then our next meeting for the high priority facility needs work group is Tuesday, March 15th.
Thank you. 6, reports and discussion items. 6.01, legislative update. Mrs. Lehman and Mr. Barker.
Thank you, Holly. Just a brief update. Since our last meeting, ISBA is still monitoring about 45 bills during this short session. Bills now will have to pass through the House by February 28th and March 1st in the Senate for further action. Here are a couple updates, though. No action occurred again a week or so ago on any of the 7 bills introduced to move Indiana to partisan school board elections. Because none of these bills were voted out of committee, they're all dead for this session. This is a victory, I think, for ISBA and all of our members, but It doesn't mean that it could be brought up again in the near future, and ISBA will just continue to advocate for nonpartisan seats in the future. House Bill 1130, public comment at meetings, and Senate Bill 83, meetings of school boards and charter schools, are bills that include provisions on mandatory public comment at school board meetings. ISBA's stance is that they're working to ensure that board presidents maintain the ability to lead and manage the meetings as they should. And the biggie, of course, is House Bill 1134, Education Matters. The bill passed out of the House with a 60-37 vote last week. Amendments were made, but major controversial opponents still remain. The bill is now in the Senate and was referred to the Committee on Education Career Development. There was supposed to be a meeting today, or a hearing today at 1:30, and I'll let Mr. Barker comment on that. I wasn't able to listen in, but he has more information, or somewhat.
Yes. You want me to do it now?
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be great. Yep.
So
great.
House Bill 1134 was not called today.
Right.
That is the controversial curriculum transparency bill that we've heard a lot about. Our teachers and all of us are very concerned about that bill. It appears that it's to be called next Wednesday. I found that out about 5:45, so I think that's true. So it may not be called at all this week and will be called next Wednesday in the Senate Education Committee. They adjourned today about 5:30 without calling that bill. I do think from my conversations with Senator Rogers, who now is basically carrying that bill on behalf of the Senate, since it did pass out of the House chambers last week, as Mrs. Lehman said. My conversations with her are that she understands that it's problematic. There are parts of it that are problematic for teachers, and I think she has hopes to be able to make that bill better. And she has been inclusive of talking to educators about that potential bill. So we're hopeful that there will be some changes, if not even the bill dying permanently as we move forward. But there's a lot of concerns with it. That's the bill that requires all teachers to post their curriculum by August 1st of each year. It requires the makeup of a curricular materials advisory committee that must have more parents on it than educators, and must have more people who don't work for the school district on it, and they're to determine if something is appropriate by community standards. There's also obviously a lot of what can be taught or what potentially cannot be taught that people have very big concerns about with that bill. So we'll continue to monitor that one and see what happens if it is called next Wednesday, and what happens maybe in the meantime. The amendments that are supposed to come forward from that are not yet posted. So right now the bill is still as it is, publicly at least, as it was when it was passed out of the House last week. Just a few other updates. Senate Bill 2, which is a good bill for public schools, unbeknownst really to the legislature when they created a bill, but a previous law, if schools had in quarantine or in isolation students beyond a certain percentage, it would actually make them considered remote students and not allowed to then be accepting of full funding for them. And they're correcting that in this bill with Senate Bill 2, so we're obviously very supportive of that bill. Senator Rogers also has Senate Bill 356, which is a additional way to combat the teacher shortage. And this bill is so that principals, superintendents can hire teachers through an adjunct licensing permit basis. We wouldn't be required to, but it would be something that would be available to us. The final bill I would talk to you about is House Bill 1072. That bill is very concerning to me. It is a bill that requires schools that pass operating referendum to share that revenue with any charter schools that are within their district boundaries. Now, we don't currently have charter schools within our boundaries, but if we did and we passed an operating referendum, it would require us to share that revenue with those charter schools. It doesn't require any involvement by those charter schools on the successful passage of the operating referendum. Doesn't require them to help us with that. There's no sweat equity on their part, but purely just a benefit to those schools. So I am obviously opposed to that bill, even though we don't have charter schools within our boundaries, and we'll continue to monitor that bill as well.
Thank you both for the update. So putting out Karma, 1134 and 1072, hopefully we'll be dead in the water. Moving on to 6.02, December financial statements and monthly comparison, Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Parks and members of the board. So, starting with the education fund, one thing I wanted to point out is this first line right here. This is our state tuition support. This is what I had estimated we would receive in state tuition support back in August of 2020. And this is what we received in state tuition support. So we received about $1.7 million more than I had anticipated. Some of that is more students on our count, but the majority of that is the additional dollars per student that we started to receive in July. So again, wanted to point that out because again, that's a very large number that we weren't anticipating in terms of revenue. I also wanted to point out the transfer to the operations fund. You'll see it at $5.9 million, which the board approved in a resolution, I think back in December. Salaries came in pretty darn close to where they were budgeted. Benefits, again, pretty close to where they were budgeted. There was some carry forward that has to do with the Medicare from the year before. That encumbrance carries forward, but it doesn't actually get paid till 2023, so that's why that percentage is a little bit lower. Professional services, property services, purchase services. Again, I think we saw some savings in these lines with some shifts to federal stimulus funds, but again, no huge surprises there. Lastly, in the expenditures, this is assuming that the board is going to approve the resolution that I'm going to present later in the board meeting, but this is a transfer to the insurance fund of $1 million. And so overall for the year with that transfer, we generated about a $2.2 million operating surplus. And we'll get into that a little bit more. I've got some summaries that I want to share, or a summary I want to share. And then the education fund ended the calendar year with just over $7.8 million. Operating referendum fund, similarly, revenue pretty close to where we would have expected it to land. Other taxes came in higher. I always estimate those low. But salaries, again, 100.06%. That's pretty accurate. Benefits again, same.
Over budget.
Yeah, it's that darn 0.6%. It's all Matt's fault. Benefits, similar situation where we had a large carry forward from 2020, but only half of that gets paid. So I expected that percentage to be a little bit lower. And then, of course, we spend a little money in professional services, supplies, and then, of course, the rainy day transfer that, again, I believe the board will be approving later this board meeting. So we have ended 2021 with $970,000 in the referendum operating fund. Debt service, again, pretty simple. Nothing really to point out. Over 98% collections in our debt service fund is excellent. I always estimate those other taxes a little bit low. And then again, no surprises. Again, those debts are set prior to the year. The only thing would be the temporary loan interest. I always put $150,000 in there, but it's never that much. The 150 is what we used to be able to put in there every year. We can no longer do that. But again, no real concerns in the debt service fund, and I would say the same thing for the referendum capital debt service fund, revenues and expenditures right where we anticipated them. Operations fund, again, 2021 is really the first year because we took advantage of protected taxes in 2020 that we're seeing the full loss of our circuit breaker. So we only collect about 40%, actually it's just slightly less than 40% of our levy in the operations fund. So $2 million and $2,088,000 lost to the circuit breaker in 2021. Similar, other taxes always estimate a little bit low. Other miscellaneous, we had an E-rate reimbursement come in this year, and I never really include those in the budget. That's why that's so high. So in other words, we paid for a project probably back in 2020. It usually takes a while for those E-rate dollars to come back to the school. That's why that line is so high. And then again, the transfers from the education at 5.9 million. Salaries, much lower than budgeted. That's because we shifted the custodians into ESSER. Similar explanation on the benefits. The other line items are pretty in line with where we would have budgeted them. Some custodial supplies were also shifted into ESSER, so that's why we're around 86% there. But because we stopped transferring that money from the education fund, or we went back and modified it to 5.9 million, we do run a deficit in the operating fund itself for 2021. Again, that's in an effort to stay under that 15% transfer target. So ending calendar year, well, let me go back just in the notes. So as of December 31st, we have shifted $1,083,000 of custodial salaries and benefits to ESSER. And then I also wanted to note that our 2018 to 2020 State Board of Accounts audit actually gets netted. So we already lost 60% to the circuit breaker, and then they net our State Board of Accounts audit costs out of our property tax levy in the operations fund. So I just wanted to point that out. But again, $2.8 million in the operations fund at the end of 2021. School lunch fund, everybody's favorite fund. Again, no real surprises. I think, as I mentioned last month, we're just seeing a lot more in federal reimbursement than we would have anticipated. And honestly, well, it's compared to 2020, so I guess this would have been expected, but we're still actually selling quite a bit of either extras to students or through the a la carte line. So we're still making some sales in addition to all breakfast and lunch being free to students and coming through in terms of federal reimbursement. So $781,000 at calendar year end. I think we will continue to see that grow through June. I have not done it since I've been here, but I intend to take indirect cost from food service this year. We've never quite had the balance to do that. But I will take an indirect cost from the food service fund, which will then put money into the operations fund, and I'll do that in June. So again, food service looks good. Curricular materials also looks good. Not a ton of activity in the month of December. We start to see some. I think that this was an overpayment that came back. I think we made a double payment. Otherwise, just some curricular materials purchases, and obviously a very healthy balance in our curricular materials fund. And then finally, the one fund that wasn't as positive is the our self-insurance fund. You'll see medical premiums. This is set up to compare current year 2021 to 2020. We're about 5.5% higher than we were last year. We raised premiums 5%. So again, that's a good indicator. Dental, vision, life, none of that changed, so we should expect to see that very similar to where it was in 2020. Other miscellaneous, again, so prior to making that transfer of $1 million that shows up right here, we would have ended the calendar year in the red by about $419,000. I do want to point out that we're always 6 months in arrears on RX rebates. So, we're always owed about $250,000 to $300,000 in RX rebates at any given time. So that's one thing to point out. I thought that $1 million into the insurance fund made sense this year, since that's roughly what we saved by shifting the custodians into ESSER. And by moving those dollars into the insurance fund, it's kind of a way of doing it that benefits really most employees in some way. So again, with that transfer, we end the year with $581,000 positive balance in the self-insurance fund. And then I did note the stop-loss reimbursement and the RX rebates received in this calendar year. Since we moved to Oxyant, they have started to apply those as credits against our bills. So I'm just going to start noting them down here, because I don't know that it's going to jive to the numbers up here in the revenue section. So I'll just note those moving forward. So those are the monthly financials for 2021. Again, the monthly comparison for 2021 will just show that, again, between our education and operations funds, we were just under a $1.4 million operating surplus. Receipts revenue was up, as were expenditures, but again, very happy with where we ended the year between these two funds. And then I did want to just share a little bit of a summary, because with ESSER things get a little bit confusing. So this is looking at education and operations funds. At the start of 2021, that was the combined balance, just over $9.2 million. This was the revenue, the expenditures. This is how we're ending 2021. So again, $1.3 million surplus for the year. But then I went and I looked, okay, what did we spend on custodial supplies that would have typically come out of the operating fund? What did we spend? We actually ordered 2 buses in 2021, but the large bus didn't come until last month. So we spent almost $60,000 on an activity bus that would have typically come out of operating. And then again, no salaries and benefits for the custodian. So if I normalize what we essentially supplanted into ESSER, we would have ran about a 202. It's probably a little bit less than that, because I think there's a number of smaller things that I didn't include here. But without ESSER funds, we would have ran roughly a $200,000 surplus. And then just to include it here, because I don't want to sound like we're too wealthy or anything like that, if we net out our operating referendum expenses, we would have ran almost a $1.3 million deficit. So again, we had a good year. It looks good in the education and the operations funds. But again, without that operating referendum, we would be back into the deficit financing situation. So again, I just wanted to point that out too. So happy to answer any questions the board may have. I'm very happy with how we ended calendar year 2021. And I think we'll have another successful year this year. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. 7, Human Resources. 7.01, Personnel Report, Mr. Caldroni.
Thank you, President Parks, board members, Superintendent Barker. It is recommended this evening that the Board of School Trustees approve the personnel report dated February 9th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 8, Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology. 8.01, E-Learning. Dr. Stocksdale and Mrs. Cummings.
President Parks, Mr. Barker, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity for Rebecca Cummings, Liberty Elementary Principal, and myself to provide an update and information about our e-learning experience last week. It's never our desire to close schools, and it's especially not ideal for 3 days. However, due to e-learning, we had the opportunity to continue the learning process for our students. If you recall, previously in the fall and the wintertime, we had 2 planned e-learning days district-wide, and we had 3 inclement weather e-learning days this past week. Our planned and unplanned e-learning days follow the same structure. That way we want to ensure the focus is on the learning, not on what do I do or how do I set this up. And so our students participated in self-directed learning opportunities and were supported by their teachers throughout the day when they reached out and as needed. After our 3rd day last week, we wanted to get feedback from our students, from our families, and from our teachers about how e-learning went. We do this so we can continue to get better at e-learning and provide the best learning opportunity possible to our students. So first, we're going to look at our feedback from our elementary parents and guardians, and we'll start by looking at that chart on the right. It represents how they would rate their overall e-learning experience, 1 being needs improvement and 5 being excellent. As you'll see, what was selected most was a 5 rating, which means excellent, and the majority of the selections were a 3, 4, or 5 out of 5. On the left, we compiled quotes from our families of our elementary students, and we wanted to pick specific quotes that summarize the themes that we saw in their feedback. I'm not going to read all of them, I'll just read the first one. Wasn't too much work for their ages and they enjoyed it. The teachers did a fabulous job and were readily available. They also let me know if we accidentally missed something and allowed my children to go back and do it. So we really wanted to point out that they're giving the students the support and the families, but also giving them the opportunity that when they do miss something, because that's natural, that will happen, that they can go back and complete that work. Next, we'll look at our feedback from our secondary students. They completed the same rating scale, with 1 being needs improvement and 5 being excellent. The most selected was a 4 out of 5, with once again the majority of the selections being a 3, 4, or 5 out of 5. We also compiled direct quotes from our students at the secondary level and picked the ones that represent the themes that came through with their feedback. And I'll just read the first one out to you. Honestly, it went surprisingly well. All questions I had were answered almost immediately when I emailed my teachers. I think that I learned just as much as I would have if I were in school. That's our ultimate goal, to keep that learning experience going, and so it's powerful to see that that student was able to articulate that experience for him or herself. Finally, we'll turn to the teacher feedback. They rated their e-learning experience in the same manner, with 1 being needs improvement, 5 being excellent. The most selected rating was a 4 out of 5, with just like the students and the families, the majority of the ratings were 3, 4, or 5 out of 5. Same collection of quotes to represent the themes, and I'll read the first. I appreciate that we knew about the e-learning ahead of time, so that we had time to prepare our assignments. That act of moving from what they were planning to do in person to now what am I going to do for e-learning, that takes time, and that advanced notification was very helpful to our teachers. So this was a big picture view of our district data, and so now we're going to go beyond the numbers and zoom into what an actual day looked like with Mrs. Cummings.
Good evening. So we're going to start and talk a little bit about the day in the life of the principal on an e-learning day. So I start my day by just logging on and checking the lessons that my teachers have posted, making sure, pretending to be a parent, clicking, or a student, clicking on links, making sure things are working, just seeing that everything is published. And then I also send a reminder to families, and you'll see on the side is one of the messages I sent. And it just says, good morning to Rocket families. I hope you're all staying warm. Students should all be working on e-learning lessons provided by their teachers via Canvas. And then I go on to talk about this being the perfect opportunity and time to get the first few chapters of the Chocolate Touch read. So we started, it just so happened the Tuesday, so we went to school on Tuesday, and then we had snow days or e-learning days. And so I was trying to continue the support of one book, one school. And so all the students had gotten a book the day before, and it's to build a community of reading. And so in efforts to support that, I sent this out and said, continue reading. This is a great time to, spend that time together reading. And then I talked about they are earning gold coins. They earn those in school by doing various activities and answering questions. And all the reading is being done at home. And then they're bringing back in and sharing. So pushing that out and still supporting the things that we do day to day. And then I also check in with teachers, problem solving. If something comes up that they face a challenge, or if there's a parent that has a question, checking in with them, supporting them. And then when we're, after I've gone through and looked at their lessons, celebrating the successes that we've had and talking about ways that we can better support our students and our families. A day in the life of the teachers. So the teachers, they start by reviewing the lesson that they had intended on teaching in person, and they then determine the best way to shift that to e-learning, whether it is to continue with that day's curriculum or to support the students by spiraling back to some other areas that we've already instructed on, but they still need support. They then create their e-learning lessons, and they are accessible on Canvas. They begin to communicate with students and families, and they provide that support from 9 to 3 to anyone throughout the day via email, phone calls, and in particular, in our building, we use Class Dojo, so there's a lot of communication that goes through that. And we did a little snippet of an example of a lesson from one of our teachers.
All right, friends, let's do some math. So this week we've been working on adding 3 numbers. We are now on the practice together. I'm so proud of you guys. We have been doing really good on this lesson, so I'm really proud. Let's talk about this question here. They give us an example. So John has 7 apples. 7 apples. I'm going to underline that because it tells us what John has and how many he has. Tom has 3.
So she goes on, and this is a great example of the teacher is talking through the lesson as if they're together. She is underlining, she talks to the students, underline in your book. And so it's, without being face-to-face, it's very interactive for the students.
All right.
So then next would be a day in the life of a student. So students log on to Canvas based on their schedule, and then they start to complete their e-learning lessons. They all do an attendance check-in, and then as needed, reach out to teachers for support and continue their learning process even though we are outside of the building. We've seen a lot of success and a lot of excitement. I sat down with a few of our students today and said, come, tell me what you liked about it. And so we have those recordings here, and they were out of the mouths of babes.
I got to hear my teacher read me a story.
When she read you the story, did you just hear her voice, or was it a video of her?
A video of her.
Oh.
And also it helped me a lot on my math because I didn't know what page to go on to. And it told me what page I had to go on to, so that was really useful.
All right.
I really liked that we got to hear Miss Russo's voice because I'm used to hearing her voice and like for my work, and I don't know why, but it just helps me more. I don't know why. And then it also is really useful for my mom because she really doesn't know how to work that stuff.
Right. Sometimes it's hard for moms and dads to do it, right? Because they're not the teachers. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I really like that. It really just like showed me everything to do, and it was really easy.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I think those students said it better than I can say it, and they really represented what we want for e-learning. We want that connection between students and teachers, even when our schools are closed. We want the learning process to continue, and we want that strong partnership with families. And so to achieve this goal, we're going to continue to strive for continuous improvement and to continue to get better at e-learning. And through this method, we'll continue to collect feedback periodically so we don't over-survey our families, our students, and our teachers. But when we collect that feedback, it's important what we do with it. And so for this round, we collected this feedback, shared it with our principals, and then each school developed action items. That could have been specific professional learning that their staff said they needed. It could have been supporting a specific family. And it also was an action item of identifying exemplars and celebrating those success, because that's how we're going to get better, is build on where we had successes and continue that continuous learning process for all students. We want to support and give students the best opportunity to learn when our schools have to close. So at this time, I open the floor for comments, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So I experienced e-learning as a mom of a kindergartner, and I have a whole new appreciation for Mrs. Wendt. I am not shocked by the feedback between elementary and secondary at all. While I thought that the lesson was set up well and it was easy to follow, I didn't enjoy it at all. Only because for me it was difficult to do. I'm not a teacher. I'm an accountant. I tell people they're stupid for a living. Like, so it wasn't good for me. But I do appreciate how we are continually trying to get better and soliciting feedback. I don't think you can ever solicit too much feedback. And I appreciate how where we're at today is so much different than when we implemented this on a 3-day weekend of you guys just going crazy trying to get it together. So I appreciate it, and I think it'll continue to get better. And I'm excited to kind of see where it goes.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that, though she may not have liked it, I love it. Quite frankly, I have 2 kids that are old enough to do this on their own. It's an excellent plan. The e-learning has really come so far from what we originally did when we had no choice but to figure out how to make this work. It doesn't take too long for them. I mean, I think it's enough time. I wish my children who have nowhere to go would get started right away. But they like to do it at their leisure. And as long as it gets done that day, that's really all I'm concerned with. But I didn't see a lot of issues with it this time. It seemed to be very flawless. Now, we'll see. I'm sure I have a missing assignment somewhere that I'll have to contend with, but we'll work through that. I think we've done a better job. I'm very happy with how it's been. It's now that we're planning it and we're planning ahead, and the night before notice is excellent for everybody all around. But I think
we heard that loud and clear in our
We're doing a
feedback.
lot better than what we did before, so I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
And I'd like to echo those sentiments. Like, I think we're doing well. I'm just saying,
She just doesn't
me
like teaching her
personally,
kids.
as a kindergarten mom.
We are grateful Amanda's not a teacher.
That's right. And I think having the 3 days in a row, like I said prior, that's a lot.
Right,
But-
it is.
And I think you all represent what we want, that continuous improvement and to never stop getting better for the best learning opportunity and getting that feedback for improvement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will tell you, Jack was very excited to see Mrs. Went on Monday.
My teacher.
Thank you. 9, business and operations, 9.01, recommendation to approve rainy date resolution number 2022-002. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Parks and members of the board. I believe this will be the 5th year passing this resolution. The administration is recommending approval of a resolution which permits the business department to transfer $400,000 from the referendum operating fund to the rainy day fund. The referendum operating fund is budgeted with the goal of transferring $400,000 annually to the rainy day fund. The rainy day fund monies, of course, the plan all along was to use those monies to diminish any effects of the property tax caps in future years.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
So, like you said, so the 400,000 is used to kind of leverage the circuit breaker. Obviously, we didn't need that too much this year because of ESSER funds and the operating referendum. But so long as we can continue to do the rainy day transfer, is that the plan going forward as well? Knowing that we're going into circuit breaker years?
Yeah, I mean, we're in circuit breaker year, so I'm really following through on the plan that was developed as part of passing that referendum, which called for annually transferring those dollars into rainy day. So you are right. We have, again, when we talk about future years, I should have modified that background statement because it's this year, and we're not running the operating deficits that we thought we were going to run. So you're absolutely correct, Amanda, but I want to stick with the plan that was developed that the taxpayers passed, which included transferring those dollars.
Yep, and I'm in support of that as well. I just wanted to clarify. Cool. So moved.
Second.
Any more questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 9.02, recommendation to approve self-insurance fund transfer resolution 2022-003. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Parks. The administration is recommending approval of Resolution 2022-003, which permits the business department to transfer $1 million from the education fund to the self-insurance fund. The self-insurance fund, prior to this transfer, had a negative balance of $418,000 at December month end. Again, I listed the transfers we've made into the self-insurance fund dating back to 2014. Happy to answer any questions the board may have, but we are asking for your approval of this resolution this evening.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 9.03, recommendation to approve year-end appropriation transfer resolution number 2022-004. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Parks. Indiana code provides that the school board may approve appropriation transfers in a regular public meeting without notice and without the approval of the Department of Local Government Finance, so long as the transfers are necessary and they do not require the expenditure of more funds than the original amount as finally approved by the Board of School Trustees. For 2021, year-end appropriation transfers are necessary in our education referendum and our referendum operating funds. The attached resolution outlines the major budget classifications in addition to the amount needing to be transferred for each classification.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 9.04, recommendation to approve paid leave benefit resolution number 2022-005. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, President Parks. On February 2nd, 2022, SCM administration sent employees home early due to hazardous winter weather conditions. With the board's approval of this resolution, it would allow for employees who were present at work who were sent home early, or employees who were prevented from starting their shift, which is basically just limited to second shift custodians, to receive full compensation for February 2nd without the need to utilize any paid time off.
So
Move for
moved.
approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 9.05, recommendation to approve resolution number 2022-006 regarding Juul litigation. Mr. Newman, Mr. Barker.
I'll just make a few brief introductory remarks. As you know, the vaping epidemic continues to be a growing problem in our community, across the country, across the world. It's now reported that over 25% of high school students will use a vape within once per month. We're seeing it in our schools. It is a major nuisance and distraction, not to even mention the negative health impacts that it's having on our students who are using it. So tonight we have an opportunity that Mr. Newman will make you aware of that allows us to make a statement about that and to also hopefully combat that problem.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. I spent a lot of time on this paragraph, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. If the board recalls, back on January 19th, an executive session was held to provide the board with information regarding an opportunity for School City of Mishawaka to join litigation against Juul Labs. Juul Labs is a major manufacturer of e-cigarettes in the United States. E-cigarette use has seen a surge among the young in recent years, with Juul Labs being identified as having primary responsibility according to the United States Department of Agriculture. School corporations in particular have been significantly impacted by e-cigarettes, as nicotine use during adolescence has negative impacts on learning, memory, and attention. School corporations across the country have been forced to utilize already scarce financial resources to address this increased use of e-cigarettes among their student population. For these reasons, the administration is recommending the approval of Resolution 2022-006, which allows School City of Mishawaka to engage with Wagstaff and Cartmel to initiate litigation and file suit against Juul Labs and any appropriate parties to compensate for damages suffered by School City of Mishawaka and its students as a result of the manufacture, marketing, sale, and use of e-cigarettes and vaping products. There is no upfront cost to the school corporation to file this lawsuit. However, if School City of Mishawaka were to receive a monetary settlement, 25% of that settlement would be payable to these attorneys.
So we're recommending approval of that resolution as presented.
Is there a motion?
I move for approval.
Second?
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 9.06, recommendation to approve professional services agreement with Amber Marsh Consultants. Mr. Newman?
Thank you, President Parks. There's actually two proposals as part of this agenda item. The first agreement is in connection with the asbestos removal project in the Mishawaka High School East Gym. The board approved the initial work towards this project back in May. Again, that was for the preliminary work for them to determine what would be involved and to give us some sort of cost estimate because we really had no idea what something like this would cost at the time. So they have done that, and we're now at the point where we need to develop the official development of an asbestos removal plan in accordance with U.S. EPA HERA regulatory requirements. Also included in this proposal is the development, advertisement, and issuance of bid documents. And again, some construction administration once the project has been bid. The total cost for this proposal is $39,000. And if approved, we have budgeted ESSER 2 to pay for both the professional services and the construction as it relates to that asbestos removal in the East Gym.
Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, there's two items here. That's my fault. I don't know why I did it that way.
And
The
then,
second agreement is for professional services related to expanding upon our existing security camera system. The administration would like to increase the number of cameras corporation-wide in addition to improving the functionality and quality when reviewing that footage. Professional services to be provided by Marsh include identifying the specific needs at each building and developing bid documents and requirements based on that evaluation. Marsh would also facilitate the process and oversee construction as part of the proposal. The total cost for this proposal is $15,000. And once again, if approved, we've budgeted some ESSER 2 dollars to be paid for both their professional services and whoever were to win that bid down the road. I'll try to answer some of Mr. Strawn's questions in relation to this item. I'll have to get back to you, David, on what happened in 2017 or the exact numbers of 2017. I don't remember any large change orders, so I'm thinking that number is correct. But again, I want to get back to you so I know that I'm accurate. In terms of construction date, I truly believe that it is to be determined. We always would prefer that any sort of construction occurs over the summer months, but this sort of project, it is possible to do it while we are in school. So I would imagine that we would start this sometime in the late summer, possibly, but I do believe it'll bleed into next school year in terms of the actual construction. The sources of funds, again, will be ESSER 2. In terms of soliciting any public input on the development of, we had not discussed that. There are a number of us in the administration that have been involved, in these preliminary meetings. So I don't know, I'll discuss that with Mr. Barker and we can get back to you on that. And then which school city employee will be the final approval authority on inclusion or exclusion of any specific terms, conditions, and technical requirements? I believe officially as the purchasing agent, that would be me. But I do want to reiterate that there's a group of us that are working on this project. It is certainly not just myself. So again, we are recommending both proposals from Marsh for approval this evening.
Move for approval.
second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. 9.07, recommendation to approve Mishawaka Marching Band uniform purchase. Mr. Newman and Mr. Chamberlain.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm honored to be part of the Alex Newman show tonight. Wore my Alex Newman outfit, if you might recognize. We wore matching shirts, but I can't afford the jacket. So we're looking at new uniforms, and this is my first time going through this process. I was actually coming into freshman year of high school when we got these uniforms. So they are 17 years old, and we are ready for new ones. So this is both an exciting and stressful process for me to go through. Started with 4 different companies and ended up getting down to 3. The design process is unique in that you are coming up with a design, but the companies also have designers and artists that come up with renderings with your ideas. And then once they come up with that idea, it's copyrighted to them. So the people aren't stealing their ideas. So it's kind of like, you're not comparing 3 of the same product. You're comparing uniforms, but you're comparing 3 different designs. So that's a huge part of the process. And I started out doing like colored pencil drawings myself, and it was really entertaining. And I realized how terrible I'm at that. So my goal was to get something that the students were proud to wear and not something that they have to wear. Oftentimes it's, ew, I don't want to be in high school band. I have to wear that uniform. And that just kind of gets to me. It should be something they're proud to put on, and some kids get super excited. So I think we met that goal. Looking for a modern design that had a modern twist, but still a classy, traditional Mishawaka maroon look that the community loves when they see in the football games or parades or anywhere. Came up with 3 solid designs to work with. Each company made and sent us a sample of the uniform, which is really nice. So they kind of make just a generic size that you can get mailed to you to check out all the details of quality and design and such. Put together a small committee of our fine arts staff to evaluate these 3 samples. We looked at the quality of the coat, quality of the pants, design of the coat, design of the hat and plume, and overall cost. We chose DeMolin and very professional rep named Doug Neal that we worked with. Doug is going to spend the day with me on this coming Monday measuring students to get an idea of what sizes we need for the 200 uniforms we're purchasing. See how many very large ones you need, how many very small ones you need, instead of just getting the generic mix of what they have. And he complimented Alex for how quick he was with the process, which I thought was awesome. He said usually some of these people are sluggish to get the job done, but Alex is quick. Making 200 custom uniforms takes about 4 months. I looked it up. It's 135 days from the signing of everything. So we're looking at mid to late June on that, which should be good for me to get a bunch of boxes in while there's nobody there so I can get everything organized. It's a lot of stuff. Share the design with the board members tonight. There are a few small adjustments that are being made to the collar and a couple things of that picture you see in front of you. That will self-destruct after tonight's meeting, so careful. So we are having a big reveal. I didn't want to show everybody tonight the uniform because at our concert on April, I believe 13th, is that what I said, Jen? April 13th is our band concert. We are going to have a professional photographer lined up in advance to a band parent to do a bunch of cool videos and pictures, put together a cool video that we can play at the concert with some exciting music and smoke and pyrotechnics or something, and reveal that to everybody, and then pick up the screen and have our drum major wearing the uniform from behind. So doing something special with that and get people excited about it. No offense, I didn't want to reveal it at a board meeting. Okay, it would have been thrilling for all of us. Mr. Strawn's questions, I believe I answered most of them. There is no shipping charge, especially when you give them thousands of dollars. 135 days after purchase for shipping. The warranty I need to double check on. It's different for every piece. So the jacket is 100% that company. The pants are something that they're getting from a different company. Hat is something different from a different company. So it's kind of pieced together, depends on the company. The old uniforms, there's multiple things we can do with them. It's not something where another school is really going to want to buy something that says MHS on the side. And they're worn out. So we can sell jackets and or hats to alumni that might be interested. I've seen it done with the old ones. We'll keep a couple of them for history's sake. Some of them can go in the prop room for next time we do Music Man. And then also some schools, if the pricing is right, some of the jackets can be made into pillows for alumni or anybody that wants to buy something like that as a memento. It just depends if the process of getting them made is right for reselling them. And I think I'm close here. We've been fundraising for this purchase since before I started teaching here. Our band boosters have also provided us with some funds that we're very grateful for. So thank you, band boosters. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, board, for helping out with this awesome purchase. And I'm going to send it back to Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Caleb. So marching band is obviously an extracurricular activity, and typically extracurricular activities, you have to raise your own money for it. The school corporation does not usually put operations or educational fund monies towards extracurricular activities, aside usually from paying for the coach. But if you ever want to know how powerful band parents are, there is an Indiana code specific to marching band uniforms that allows a school board to match any funds that were raised, in this case by our marching band program, toward the purchase of marching band uniforms. So that is Indiana Code 20-30-15-8B. And so we are asking for the board's favorable approval this evening to purchase those band uniforms from DeMullen Band Uniforms and Accessories at a total cost of $76,665.32, with one half coming from our operating fund and one half coming from the Mishawaka High School Marching Band Extracurricular Fund.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have two comments on this. Thank you, Jesus, because those uniforms were hideous. And I am impressed with the fact that you raised $40,000 as a band department, so that is incredible, and it speaks volumes to the parents in the community that support you. So I think as a board, it would only be in our best interest to support the other half of that. So congratulations on raising that money. Congratulations on updating the look. And if no one, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Oh, I'm excited. That's all I gotta say. I'm excited.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. 9.08, recommendation to approve Mishawaka High School food service equipment purchase. Mr. Newman?
Thank you, President Parks. The administration is seeking approval to purchase food service equipment for Mishawaka High School from Stafford Smith in the amount of $237,833. In accordance with federal procurement regulations, a request for proposal was published in the South Bend Tribune and Mishawaka Enterprise on January 13th and 20th, with bids due January 28th. The administration is looking to purchase 6 serving counters and 2 cashier stations for Mishawaka High School. The current equipment is well over 30 years old, and we can no longer find spare parts to repair them. Director of Food Service, Linda Cupp, worked with HRI Inc. out of Indianapolis to help identify the best equipment for our needs, and he also helped develop the RFP in accordance with federal regulations. Stafford Smith submitted the only bid for this equipment at a total cost of $237,833. Although it was the only bid received, the overall cost came in almost $17,000 under the initial budget, which was developed by HRI. If approved, federal stimulus dollars, specifically ESSER 2, have been budgeted for this purpose. And if approved, equipment is scheduled for installation prior to July month end. Mr. Strawn had a question about the old equipment. We asked Stafford Smith maybe what they would give us to take that equipment, and they were very quick to let us know that we would have to pay them to take that equipment. So we will try to scrap it and get some money for it. And whatever else is left will probably be disposed of.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 10, policy updates, nothing. Beautiful. 11, communications. 11.01, public announcements. In observance of President's Day, February 21st, 2022, all schools, school offices, and administration center will be closed. The next meeting of the Board of School Trustees will be February 23rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the Admin Center. If there's nothing else to come before